They tryna turn Trenton into Baby Flint. Been signs by depression on the billboards ever since. 100 years ago we was lynched. Now they use germ warfare to kill us. I'm convinced, got the evidence. I look around and it's evident. Then go down to City Hall and see so much negligence. Real art is intelligent. A true artist sends messages that speak to your intelligence. They fought and died so I can do my thing. Not to get drunk and high or join no gang. I will not let none of you die in vain. For my people I bang, bang, bang. My ancestors been through so much pain. I don't let them die in vain. My ancestors been through so much pain. I don't let them die in vain. I rep for you in everything I do. I rep for you in every place I go. I rep for you in everything I do. In every place I go. They say post-traumatic slavery disorder's fake, but I just tell them all to wake up. Everything we went through, what a way down a rape, bro. Isn't our genetic makeup. So I am my ancestors from block to block. Let's build like it's Tetris. We must unite, link up like a necklace. They fought and died and we disrespected. So I come to correct it. The legacy they left I protected. We only think about self and neglected. You're African but yet you rejected. No, my ancestors been through so much pain. I don't let them die in vain. My ancestors been through so much pain. I don't let them die in vain. I rep for you in everything I do. I rep for you in every place I go. I rep for you in everything I do. In every place I go. I do. I go.
All right. Welcome back to another edition of New Freedom Exchange, a cultural expression for social dignity and community empowerment. I'm your host, Brother Dean, here with my executive producer, aka the man with the hot sauce, Brother Bilal. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. How's the beloved, man?
Oh man, everything is good. We are celebrating in conjunction with Minority Mental Health Month, but we put a little spin on it. Brother Bilal,
we're not rolling with that type of language, man. We're not minorities, man. It's healthy new thinking series.
Absolutely, healthy new thinking series. We got a quote here from our leader and teacher, and the best life is mental life. And throughout this weekend, we have some dynamic guests that's going to present some of their work, some of their authorship, some of their artistry, to bring some new language, some new spirit to the landscape of the conversation. So, how you feeling today, though? Otherwise,
feeling good, man. I'm feeling real good. I think this is blessed that we're kicking off this series doing Yom Juma, man. Some of saying is, it's a blessed time, and I think it's a right time to have this exchange on the theme, especially due to the current environment that we're in, with the chaos across the United States and across the world, and also with the current racial tensions. Some are saying across the world, especially here in the United States, and such a timely topic with our brother Dr. Shafeeq Ameen, such a timely topic that he has published one of his publications. Is HBCU Pride, a novel that he has written. And we're seeing that now. I don't know if you've been seeing on the news, especially in the athletics departments, a lot of top high school football and basketball players are now considering and now have accepted. A lot of them have accepted to attend HBCUs versus attending the UCLAs and the Syracuses and the Dukes and all those other schools. So we're timely on a lot of we're tying all this into the series actually. Absolutely. So it's very timely.
Excellent. And then you also a product of HBCU.
Yes, I am. Yes,
I am. You like to throw your joint out there.
yeah. You know, the first historically Black college university, Lincoln University, PA. So class of 2014. So I'm rather young, fresh out, but happy to be part of this conversation today with our beloved Dr. Shafeeq Ameen.
Absolutely. So before we bring him in, I think we just been blessed.
We've been blessed
by the best. Let's bring her in here, Sister Marsha.
Sister Marsha, assalamu alaikum.
I'm always like rushing in from work. I just got to bear with me.
No, it's good. It's all good. It's all love. It's all love. It's all love, sis. Good to have you. How you feeling?
Today was good. I'm feeling good. It's nice outside, not too hot. I caught actually both of y'all cook bar today. I caught a little bit of Dean's, and then I caught like the tail end of yours. So I was blessed by both my brothers today. So it's a good day. It's a good day.
That's good.
Absolutely. Let's greet our listening audience and watcher viewership. Sister Khadija is always on it. Assalamu alaikum, sister.
Walaikum salam. My sis, man. That's my sis. She's always on it. She's always on it.
Absolutely. So we did our check-in. We're going to introduce our guest here. I got his bio. I'm going to read that.
You want to read it, or you want him to introduce himself?
Yeah, we could do a mixture. Okay.
Give
a little bit of that and bring him in. Yeah, so Brother Shafeeq, or Dr. Shafeeq Ameen, is a retired school administrator, middle school teacher, and adjunct professor of education. He has spent the past 30 years teaching elementary, middle, high school, and collegiate levels at private and public institutions. He is the author of Odyssey, The Road Less Traveled, that chronicles the transformational powers of historical Black colleges and universities, and soon to be released, A Message to a Fatherless Generation, which details the devastating impact of absent fathers in the lives of African American boys. He holds a Bachelor's of Arts from Virginia State University, a Master of Early Childhood Education from Norfolk State University. He also has his Master of Educational Administration from Regent University and a Doctorate of Philosophy and Educational Leadership from Virginia Polytechnic Institute and State University. During his 25-year career in education, Dr. Ameen has served as a high school administrator, elementary, middle, and high school teacher, adjunct professor at Tidewater Community College, Everett University, Norfolk State University, Regent University, and Virginia Wesleyan, I hope I said that correctly, University, and he lives presently in Georgetown, Maryland. We're honored to have our dear brother, Dr. Shafeeq Ameen. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. How's everyone doing?
Good. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
How are you?
I'm doing well. Alhamdulillah.
Excellent. So we could get it kicking. I know we're excited to have you here. I mean, you are, from just what we read and from we got to know you in a short period of time. You've been in the battlefield. You've been on the front line, dealing with not only teaching our young people, males and female, but dealing with the after effect of all the things that they go through at home, and you see it firsthand. So can you kick us off? If you'd like to add anything to that intro, you're welcome to do that. But also, we could jump right into how is it? How have you been? Or share with us your frontline experience in education.
Absolutely. First, I want to say that I was loving the lyrics to the song. We do it for the ancestors.
That's right.
And, when we think about everything that African Americans have gone through, that everything that we do moving forward should always be a reflection of what our ancestors had sacrificed for us in the past. So we have a legacy to live up to, and we should never take that for granted. When we think about me just being in the classroom, either in the public, private, or collegiate level, I just see the need for African Americans to really embrace the whole educational format. We've been through a lot, but when we think about all of the educational opportunities that we have now, that we have to learn to take advantage of it. And one of the reasons that I push historically Black colleges and universities so hard is because we really don't need to go anywhere else. The foundation has already been laid for us. Brother Bilal put it succinctly when he talked about because of the protest movements that are going on in our nation, that we're having some of our best and gifted. We're starting out with athletes, but we're going to need some individuals who are focused on academics too, to start to come back to historically Black colleges and universities and have our institutions be their first viable options before they decide to go to the predominantly white institutions, the PWIs.
Excellent. Bilal?
Yeah. So how would you say, Dr. Shafeeq, that your HBCU experience prepared you for the work that you are doing currently?
Well, first, when Virginia State University accepted me, from high school, I was a struggling student. I wasn't struggling because I had any type of inherent academic issues. My issues was with immaturity, a young man who had not found his stride. And if I didn't go to a historically Black college that was so small and so nurturing, I probably wouldn't have the number of degrees that I have today. One thing about my experience at Virginia State, I grew up, was raised and nurtured in right outside of North Philadelphia. I went to Alumni High School, and once I left Philadelphia and went to Petersburg, Virginia, it was my first introduction to the Southern life. And it was good for me to leave Philly to go to a small environment. And one thing the Virginia State did for me, it was like my extended family, that they made sure that they held my hand as I was going through my adolescence. They made sure that I understood the importance of education. And I think one thing that they really did for me that I see so often, when I see African Americans, many who did not go to predominantly Black college or university, and they went to a PWI, a lot of times they still have some cultural liabilities. They tend not to feel as strong and confident when they are around non-African Americans. They still bow their heads and they won't look at people that aren't African American in the eyes. And I thought that was just me, but I have other friends and colleagues who have graduated from HBCUs, and they see it too. And one thing that you will get at a HBCU, they give you a cultural confidence that is difficult to get anywhere else until you're immersed in that environment around gifted African Americans, from the students to the professors to the president of the university to the provost. When you see all of those individuals look just like you, it gives you a confidence that you can't get anywhere else.
Excellent. Go ahead, Marsh.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Let's do that. Like she's gonna come with all these millions of questions. You do that, Marsh, like just let her go. No, but I'm just sitting here in awe, and I'm a graduate of an HBCU, so I'm just like, you know, all of that which you just said resonates with me. I graduated from Howard University, 2002, HU.
HU, the real HU.
Real HU.
Quick, sorry. and we didn't sort of talk about the book yet, because I have questions in relation to that. But before we get to that, where do you, so you talk about the importance of sort of steering our children into the realm of enrolling into a HBCU. Why do you think that so many young people may sort of not, go into that direction? And what is it that we can do to encourage them?
I think it comes from the parents. We have to nurture our children to help them to understand that these are our institutions. If we don't send our kids there, we can't expect anybody else to do that. One thing that you learn from your own cultural experience is that, you should be the first individuals on the front line. A lot of times when we have some of our academically gifted African-American children, their parents tend to steer them to historically white schools. And, maybe they'll look at a Spelman, maybe a Howard, maybe a Morehouse or a Hampton. But then after you leave those four, then a lot of times you won't hear the other historically Black colleges in the conversation. We have to make sure that our children understand that our institutions should be first and foremost in their minds. I'm not saying that all African-American kids have to go to HBCUs, but it should be in the conversation. So I think it starts at home. And then a lot of times what you'll get is some of our African-American kids, they hear a negative perception as it relates to HBCUs. They'll think that they're just party schools, that if you go there, you really won't get an education. You're just wasting your time. But one thing that you find out in education, and some people disagree with me with this, but when you think about going to an institution of higher learning, the most important thing that you should learn from the whole educational experience is that schools are only supposed to help you find a niche and then teach you how to think. Everything else after that is on you. So, you can go to a Cheney or Lincoln or a Virginia State or a Morgan State, and you can get the same quality education there as you can get anywhere else. It's all about your mindset. So once we kind of teach our kids that they can be the best that they can be at historically Black colleges, then hopefully they'll start to do what some of these top tier athletes are doing and saying, some of it is about the academics, but some of it is just about supporting your people and supporting your own mindset.
So to that, I have another question, and this one is in reference to diversity. Because I remember when I was in 12th grade, and I was preparing to go to college, and I remember that my cheerleading coach was so adamant about the fact that she wanted me to apply to a school that wasn't a historically Black college or university, because she felt like there wouldn't be enough diversity there. And then interestingly enough, first of all, I only applied to Howard. So I don't know what was going to happen if I didn't get it. That's not even a possibility for me. But interestingly enough, when I got to school, my roommate wasn't there for like the first few days, and the reason she was there is because she was flying in from Germany, and I was just like, wow, I had this coach who was so gung ho about diversity. You're not going to get enough diversity, and I'm just like, well, wait, my roommate is from Germany,
right?
So talk to us a little bit about diversity and historically Black colleges and universities, and those who may have that misconception that you won't get a diversified experience.
Well, it probably it depends on how you describe diversity. Sometimes diversity is overrated. And what I mean by that, you can go to a historically Black college and be around people who look just like you and your ancestors, but they come from a totally different background. That's diversity. And I mentioned in the book, you know, when you think about a university like Yeshiva, which is a predominantly Jewish school, you never hear people talk about the lack of diversity at that school, even though the majority of the kids there, the young adults, are Jewish. So, you know, we should never allow, you know, that tag of diversity bother us. You can get a lot of diversity when you go to a historically Black college. Coming from the North and then going to the South, I mean, I've met people when I was at Virginia State and at Norfolk State that if I didn't go to those universities, I would have never met people like that in my life. Right. And that's diversity, and that's true diversity. So it's not just about a skin color. And, you know, we have to understand as African Americans that we have some battle scars and we have some historical baggage that we have to unpack. And sometimes what you need to do to unpack that baggage is to be around your own people to help heal you before you can feel like you are ready to tackle the world. So I think that's one of the gifts of being at the HBCU. Hopefully I answered the question. You did.
I'm like, I'm ready to, you know, unleash all the other questions that are questions.
No, you're welcome to. I do want you to add, if you could push back a little bit on that, more about the importance of unpacking the baggage, right? Because that's really the impact that we want to address.
Absolutely.
With your expertise. You touched on one aspect as far as the overratedness of diversity. But what are some other things?
Right. Well, I mean, it's we have, you know, some psychological scars that we really have to deal with. And, you know, within the African American community, we tend not to like to reach out to our mental health professionals, but we have a lot of trauma that, you know, we've experienced within the family, within the community. And those are things that if we don't find a way to unpack them, then it becomes a part of our DNA. And then it becomes generational, because then we wind up passing that down to our children, and that's unfair to them. And when you go to a HBCU, one thing that you find out that you find a brotherhood and a sisterhood of individuals who have gone through some of the same things that you've gone through, and you can commiserate with each other, and that's a form of therapy, and that's so helpful. And a lot of times, as African Americans, we don't even know how damaged we are. And when you're around other people who have been through some similar pains, and then you start to talk, then you start to find out that some of the things as African Americans that we've experienced is unnatural, and we've made it natural. And when you get a chance to really talk to people who've gone through some of those shared pains, it's a healing process. I know one thing that really helped me out a lot is that some of my professors at Virginia State, you know, we would have conversations that went well beyond classroom instruction, and they would tell me about the struggles they had to come to a historically Black college, and then to unpack the damage of the kids who were there, who some of them came to university life and they really weren't prepared to be college students. They had to help, you know, heal that academic baggage that they were going through, including in that. And then you had quite a few kids, and that's why I wrote the second book, that is a lot of those kids who were going to the HBCUs, especially the males, were growing up without fathers, so they didn't know how to be men. And now that they were asked to be men on a college campus and take responsibility and not be so fragile and to be leaders, these were all concepts that they knew nothing about. And the professors at these HBCUs had to not only teach the academics, they had to teach young men and young women how to be young men and young women. And that's some of the things we had to go through.
So, Dr. Shafeeq, can you speak to, growing up in North Philly, growing up in the jungle, so to speak, because I know people from North Philly,
right?
What I'm saying, and growing up in that atmosphere, as a young African American male, going to college, can you talk to us about the traumas? I mean, the psychological traumas that young African American males are experiencing in the urban communities, in these inner urban communities, and how that correlates to the fact that there's more sisters at HBCUs than there are brothers.
Correct. Yeah, and that's going to continue to be a problem because our sisters are working overtime, and our brothers appear to be going backwards. And to have a healthy society, we have to have a balance.
Right.
We have to have the brothers step up to the plate and realize that the things that they're seeing in the rap videos are just in the videos. It's not real life, and that all the brothers are not going to be basketball players and football players and rappers and entertainers. That we need some individuals out there that can tackle the sciences and technology and things of that nature. I was somewhat fortunate, so I'm older than everyone on the panel now. So when I grew up in Philly, that it wasn't as bad as it is today, just in terms of the issues that a lot of the African Americans went through. Quite a few young men on my block still had active fathers in their lives. That we had. That's when Temple University was really starting to become up and coming, and it was cleaning up a lot of the areas. I used to hang out on Girard Avenue, and back then that's where the African Americans would go to shop at. It was a district that we were very proud of. But I know when I left Philly, just to show kind of the damage that some inner city life had, I went to Petersburg, Virginia, which is a real small Virginia city. And because I was from Philly, I went on campus and felt like, being from Philly, I was the toughest guy out there, tried to show this machismo when I went on campus. And then I found out that, some of these boys from the country are not to be played with. And it was all about, kind of realizing that, the machismo that I was giving off was more in my head than, actually something physically that I had. But that had to do with being in Philly. You had to, even back then when I was going to school, that, you had to be tough in Philly. You had to know the crowd to hang out with. When I was in Philly, that's when the gangs really started to emerge and people started to carry guns and things of that nature. So it was just the beginning of the gang life. So, you had to act tough if you weren't tough. And I brought that to the school with me. But, it took a couple years, and then and maybe we can talk about it later, that one of the greatest things that happened at my HBCU is that I accepted Islam when I was in my sophomore year in college. Academically, I was on academic probation. I still wasn't doing the things I needed to do. My father had talked to me about, being a Muslim and being responsible, taking life seriously. And then, the end of my sophomore year, I accepted Islam. And one thing about accepting Islam is that HBCU, not only did I have my African-American family, but I had my Muslim brothers and sisters. So, I was covered on all ends. So I can say that, the birth of Islam in my soul happened at Virginia State. And, that was one of the greatest experiences of my life. And, thank Allah that, I'm still a practicing Muslim today.
Wow, we're gonna have to touch on that. The questions is jumping in the chat. So let's shout out a couple of people who are listening. Let's do a shout out. Do a shout out segment. This is Nicole. This is Nicole. She says hi. Nicole is the president of the HBCU Hub Incorporated here in New York City, upon which I am a proud member of the board. And we work in the grassroots here in New York, basically working in the New York City public schools, preaching the HBCU gospel with advocacy. And we know we have programming, HBCU. We do HBCU nights in public schools. We take students to HBCU's trips, and we're also planning our second annual HBCU week here in New York City, because we're coming across the narrative, Dr. Shafeeq, that these counselors are not. The counselors are not. They're advising their students not to go to HBCUs because of the stereotypes and the norms and et cetera. But before we get there, let's run down a couple more shout outs. This is Brother Darryl Roberts, aka Brother Vi. He's part of your fraternity. Dr. Shafeeq. There you go. All right.
Make it South Five.
That's right. Beta chapter. So he's tuned in. Let me see who else is tuned in. One of my another Lincoln alum, Brother Earl Gray. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Earl Gray. He was my teacher in Claire Muhammad School, Alpha Phi Alpha, new chapter. He was my history teacher in Claire Muhammad in Queens. So thank you for tuning in. So there's a question from Mr. Darryl Roberts. Brother Darryl Roberts. He says, question, what would be the impact of high-profile Black athletes choosing HBCUs, particularly basketball, have on the attractiveness and marketing of HBCUs to the mainstream?
I mean, that can go either way. I mean, it's an introduction, and I think for the young brother who chose Howard University, I think it's an introduction. Everybody knows Howard anyway, so even if you're not Black, but I think what will happen is that when you have these high-profile athletes purposely choosing HBCUs, it will shine a spotlight on these universities that hopefully it'll start to bring in more money to the universities that they desperately need, and it will highlight the great things that these schools could do. I'd like to have as much excitement for a 4 or 5 star athlete going to a Howard, as a valedictorian going to Hampton or Morehouse. So we're not there yet, but being an athlete, these top tier athletes, it's definitely an introduction, and it can't be a negative, because we need to have that type of exposure. But I did want to say something to Brother Bilal. You said that Lincoln was the first HBCU. It was actually the second. So the first is, well, I'm not trying to kill Kane. Kane was actually the first in 1837, but the reason that people think that Lincoln was number one is because Lincoln was the first HBCU to actually grant college degrees.
Okay, beloved, we'll let you rock. 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 I got love for Cheney. We got love for Cheney. We'll let you rock, man. I knew someone was going to try to slide that into the conversation. It's all love. It's all love.
Absolutely.
But let's get to Nicole's question. She has a very important question. Another very important question. She said, I recently learned that North Carolina A&T de-emphasized the recruitment of out-of-state students, considering in-state students are prioritized and bring in more funding. Does Dr. Shafeeq know if this is the same for VSU and other state-funded HBCUs?
Not to my knowledge. I mean, well, one thing that, many historically Black colleges are still struggling with enrollment. We're down to 104 HBCUs. This is the lowest number that we've had nationwide. And, we've had 3 that have, recently had to close their doors because of funding. And what you find out, being at a institute of higher learning, is that once you admit out-of-state students, that out-of-state tuition is a lot greater than the in-state tuition, so it brings more money in. I would like for HBCUs to kind of go with the formula that Howard has. What Howard has is that everybody pays the same, regardless if you're in-state or out-of-state. But if HBCUs feel that they can, generate enough revenue by primarily admitting students from that state, then that's all well and good. But we're going to need to think about some out-of-state dollars, and then hopefully we'll be able to talk too that we're having quite a few HBCUs now that are struggling financially to keep the doors open, so they are admitting more and more non-African Americans, and you're starting to see the color line of HBCUs drastically starting to change. You're seeing some HBCUs that are barely 50% African American, and that's a whole nother conversation.
Right. So. You stumped me with that one.
It's real, because you have to understand that HBCUs, they still have to keep the doors open.
Right.
They can stick to the mission of educating African Americans, but they have to understand too, if the numbers are low and it's, they have to choose between keeping the doors open or admitting more non-African Americans, they may not have a choice.
Right. So do you think that the HBCUs have a particular area where they may lack something that may or may not attract young people to them? Because
that's a real good question.
Brown or or Yale or any of those other schools.
All right. So, and this is not an answer that many African Americans like to hear. But
come on, we're about to exchange. We're about to exchange, Dr. Shafeeq.
So
bring it out.
So when you think of HBCUs, I think one of the traps that we tend to get into, some African Americans, when they get to the position of leadership, they really shouldn't be there. And what I mean by that is that you'll get African American schools, sometimes they will wind up hiring the president of the university who doesn't have a background in finance. He doesn't, or she doesn't have a background that can bring money into the school. It's one thing to hire people on who can be good spokespersons for the school, but if you don't have individuals who are strong, bringing in the financial dollars, the state funding to keep these schools open, we're still going to run into the same problems. A lot of times at historically Black colleges is that we tend to hire our friends and people that we know, and sometimes people stay in office far too long, and that's just because they knew the right person. And if you just have these people who are just hanging on and they're not contributing to the school, or they were hired on because of a relative and they're not really qualified to be in that position, then the students are going to be the ones who suffer. And you'll see this a lot when you look at HBCUs having financial problems. Sometimes it's not just a matter of the shortage of students, it's how the schools are run. And if they're not run properly, then you're always going to have these issues with accreditation. You're always going to have these issues with bringing in the best and the brightest, or you just have to kind of almost take anybody who barely has a high school diploma into your school who may not graduate, which is going to bring down your graduation rate. That's going to affect your funding. And we tend to fall into that category. Howard doesn't have that problem. Hampton doesn't have that problem. Morehouse doesn't have that problem. Spelman doesn't have that problem. But they're like the top tier HBCUs. When you go to the middle or even a lower tier HBCUs, sometimes just to keep the doors open, they're either bringing in non-African Americans or people who are really not ready for the college experience, and that's going to bring things down. But that's just my opinion.
What, Dr. Shafeeq, would you say, because you spoke about a president having a background in finance, right? Or having some type of background in finance. Would you say that also having a background more so in innovation, creative innovation, or even sustainability, for that matter, would be good to bring in as well? Because, you know, finance is good. Finance is great. We need capital. You know, sometimes we definitely need capital. But however, what I'm seeing across the country sometimes too is, you know, we are training students to also be workers, you know, a 9 to 5, and, you know, not in some of our curriculums may not be up to par in terms of our programming. You know what I'm saying? And making those partnerships, those strategic partnerships with other programmings to bring in more programs and to encourage professors to research and different things like that. Would you say also that's something that a president and in leadership, something that HBCU should consider?
You have to have a balance, you know, but you have to be a realist. You know, being realistic, you have to make sure you have the money to keep the doors open. You want to make sure you have creative people there. You want to make sure that, and this happens sometime at historically Black colleges, because sometimes they have to bring in kids who maybe are not academically ready for college, that they could water down the curriculum. And if you water down the curriculum, then that's going to water down various programs that you have in the school, especially if you're trying to bring in STEM money. You're trying to make sure you're bringing in creativity into the school. So if you can have a balance with maybe a very innovative provost, and then you have a president who is either has a background in finance or has partnerships throughout the state that can promote the HBCUs, that can work, along with someone who is strong in curriculum development. You have to have a little bit of everything at HBCUs. You know, we have to, you know, at HBCUs, we have to work twice as hard as anybody else. So, but that's okay. You take on that mindset, but you have to make sure that if you have innovation, if you have the finance and you have technology, and then you have someone who could be, it would be their full-time job to be a promoter of the university, either throughout the state or nationally. Those four combinations can keep the doors open.
What about the role of the alumni and the students who graduate? Like, what is their role and responsibility, giving back the endowment?
I was going there.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm glad you are. If you look nationally, that the graduates of HBCUs give less than any of the predominantly white institutions back to their schools, and our schools have given more to us. So we don't have a lot of alumni dollars. We don't have a lot of people doing anything who graduated from these schools besides giving lip service and not stroking that check and making sure that the school can get something, or even joining alumni organizations throughout the various cities and states. You know, we don't have that as much as some of the PWI schools. So that's something that we're lacking. But it is something that, you know, we just need more encouragement to do it. I think one thing about African Americans that a lot of times that, you know, we have people in our community, even if they graduated from college, they're almost living paycheck to paycheck. So it's not like they have a lot of disposable income. But even if they can't give money back, then as parents, it should be our responsibility to push these HBCUs to our children and to anybody who has an open ear.
Yeah, I was actually going to that question about the responsibility as an alumni, because I was just like, you know, man, we have a responsibility to it. And when I say that, I'm speaking to myself first, right? Because I think about my story. I'm from Jersey City, New Jersey. I grew up in the hood. So
okay.
I went to a Howard where, I have friends who that's like a dream. I was, I guess, considered one of the ones who made it, And
Right.
so as you were talking, I was like, well, man, like there's somebody else who is now what Marsha was at 17, 18 years old, preparing
Absolutely.
for college. And so what opportunity am I possibly robbing them from because I'm not, actively fulfilling my role as a HBCU alumni?
And, even if we can't give back financially, since, we have one of the greatest majors that you can have at a historically Black college, something that we've thrived on, is producing teachers. HBCUs, many of the early HBCUs, that's what they were doing. They would send the kids, the young adults, to college to become teachers. And so you'll get a lot of HBCUs have very strong educational departments. So if these individuals are in the classroom or they're running schools, then it should be their responsibility to promote historically Black colleges. Every school that I've been to, I've always gone down to the counseling office and said, listen, you need to start talking up HBCUs. And sometimes when you mention schools outside of the top 4 that I happen to mention, that they don't know anything about HBCUs. So that means they're not pushing HBCUs to the minority students. So, either doing it in your classroom or in talking to the counselors, or talking to administration, or talking to people in your neighborhood. But if you can't give financially, which we all should, that we should at least be able to be champions for our school. My wife, she graduated from Elizabeth City State University. So we're keeping, and we give back to her school. We give back to Norfolk State. We give back to Virginia State, and any little bit helps because, our kids have to see that we are so proud of the schools that we graduated from, because many of us wouldn't be in the positions that we're in today if it wasn't for our HBCUs.
Excellent, excellent. Let's do a station identification. This is New Freedom Exchange, a cultural expression for social dignity and community empowerment. We're here with our special guest, Dr. Shafeeq Ameen, who's actually, we've been addressing everything around the book. So I guess we could transition into the book before we close out our hour. We thank all of you who's been tuning in. We're also simulcasting on UMG, United Media Group, our international media network. We thank you all for tuning and listening, sharing, liking, subscribing. Here's the link here. We did a short link for his link on Amazon. That's tinyurl.com/HBCU Pride. And you can get access to all of his books.
Good. I can talk a little about the book itself. So I initially started to write the book probably about 10 years ago, and I just kind of put it down and didn't do anything with it. And in 2017, I started to think about where my life was at, and being an administrator, and I just received my doctorate degree, and then I kind of looked back at myself as a struggling student at Alumni High School in Philly, and then struggling initially at Virginia State, and then how they changed the entire trajectory of my life by giving me a sense of cultural pride, giving me a sense of academic confidence that if it wasn't for them holding my hand, being very patient with me, that I wouldn't be the man that I am today. And so I just felt it was my obligation to give back. And when I talked to a lot of my friends who graduated from HBCUs, they had the same stories. They talked about, I thought I knew who I was until I went to a HBCU and found out that I'm descendants of greatness. And it's something that I took for granted, that I didn't know a lot about. But just being around the minds, the capacity of individuals who have gone to the very top academically, our professors and our presidents and our provosts, and then being around students who they realize their responsibility, and then that camaraderie of just being around all of those people together, it forces you to step up. And that's what it did for me and to a lot of my friends who went to historically Black colleges.
Dr. Shafeeq, could you speak to, since your field is in education, you spent a lot of your years in education, speak to briefly the importance of seeing the African-American males return back to the classroom on early from K to 12 setting,
right.
You know, because there's a lot of movements now to encourage more Black males to come teach in the public school system, you know, in the public school system. Can you speak to that just in general, us returning back to the classroom and, you know, reclaiming that part of our narrative?
Well, it's, you know, sometimes African-American males, the struggle about actually going into the classroom is that it's difficult financially to support a family off of a teacher's salary.
It's true.
And, you know, that's a reality.
That's
but
true.
We have to suck it up, and we have to realize that because we have so many fathers who are not in the lives of our young men, that sometimes we have to be those role models. And to be that role model is that it's no greater role model, you know, besides your parents, than to actually be in a classroom and see that child and work with that child every single day. You know, for African-American males, it's going to be a sacrifice for some of us, but we put ourselves in a position that we have to sacrifice. You know, I've, especially on the high school level, that, you know, me being in the classroom on my first day of class, then, you know, I'll ask the kids, you know, how many African-American male teachers have you had? And I'll have kids who have gone through K through 11th grade and never had a Black male teacher. And we teach different. And it's not even about the academics. It's just, you know, about our nature, about our personalities, about the things that we bring to the table. And for our African-American boys, you know, when they see someone who is not a basketball player or a football player or a singer or a rapper, but someone who, you know, is a father, is an educator, is a mentor in front of them, you would be surprised the difference it would make. I mean, I would have kids come and, you know, these are boys who try to act hard in class. And then, you know, during lunch, everybody's leaving to go to the cafeteria to be with their friends. They want to hang around the classroom with me, you know, just kind of hang around because they want to be around a male, somebody who looks like them. And then they start to talk to you about, you know, missing their fathers or, you know, I'm smart, but I don't want to tell kids how smart I am. So I have to kind of play stupid in class and be a clown. And, you know, how do you do it? And all these other things. And, you know, you can reach them. And they tend not to be the same young men at the beginning of the school year as they were by the time that you get a chance to kind of walk them through the process. So as African-American males, you know, we need to go back into the classrooms. And then as parents of boys, we have to be able to teach them that, you know, life is not all about fun and games. You know, it's our young ladies are stepping up to the plate and they're going to college and they are achieving great things in the world. And some of our brothers are just kind of sitting on the sideline and allowing life to happen to them as opposed to be active participants. And we have to, you know, teach these young men that, listen, you're going to be fathers and husbands and leaders, and you got to step up. You know, some things may be difficult, but, you know, life is not supposed to be easy, especially for African American. You know, we have to go through the struggles. It makes you a better person.
Can you, my last question for me to you, Dr. Shafeeq, you know, could you elaborate a little bit on your journey to Al-Islam, especially at a HBCU? I think that's a connection that it is not really talked about. Religion and spirituality at HBCUs. It's not something that, I mean, it's talked about, but it's it's not talked about at the same time. So
okay.
Could you talk about that experience? You coming into contact. How'd you come into contact with Al-Islam at HBCU, and how was it that on the campus with maintaining your dean, as they say?
Mm-hmm. So just briefly, I'll go back when I was a sophomore in high school. My dad became a member of the Nation of Islam, and he came home one day and told everybody he was a Muslim, and we had no idea what he was talking about. I have an older sister and an older brother, and he would take us to the temple and things of that nature. And you know, it just seemed so rigid, and it seemed like I was going to have to change my life, turn it upside down. So I put that on the back burner. I went to Virginia State, struggled the first 2 years academically, and then one of my friends from Trenton, New Jersey, he was most of the people from the north kind of hung together, and he was a merchant seaman. And during the summer, he had gone overseas and he converted to Islam, and he came back on campus. And he said, "Listen, it was about 10 of us, all from the north, from New York, New Jersey, Philly." And he said, "Listen, none of us are living our lives the way we need to. You know, we need to become Muslim." And just everything my dad had told me at that point, everything just kind of came together. And I said, "You know what? You're right." So 10 of us all together took our shahadas, and we were sophomores at the end of our sophomore year. And for the last 2 years, junior and senior year of college, we roomed together. We bought a restaurant in Petersburg, Virginia. We ate together. We made money to build up the Muslim community. We had a really strong Muslim student association that they work with us. But one thing I do want to mention is that once I converted, I was like a super Orthodox Muslim. I mean, I went from, wearing shorts and sandals to the next day I had a thobe and a kufi on, and my friends thought I was crazy. But the person who didn't think I was crazy, besides the people that I converted with, was my academic advisor at Virginia State, and he was a Christian. And he pulled me into the office, and I told him, I said, "Listen, I'm changing my name. I'm going down to the courthouse. I'm a Muslim now. I don't care what all these people think, And he said, "Listen, this is what I want you to do." He said, "We're going to have study sessions, me and you. I'm going to tell you how Christianity, Judaism, and Islam are monotheistic religions, and they all come together. And if you're going to go out there on a limb and be a Muslim, you need to know your faith, and you need to know your role in the faith." And we would have study sessions at least once a week. He took me out when I bought my first car. He drove me to the dealership, and he would talk to me about Islam and about Christianity and about Judaism. And without that support system, and my friends who had just converted with me, it would have been difficult. But a Christian brother who just said, "Listen, this is a young 20-year-old man struggling to find his way in life, who needs some guidance, and it's my obligation as his academic advisor, even though I'm in a different faith, to kind of walk him through the process." And I mean, I thank him to this day for doing that. And it made the transition so much easier for me.
Excellent. I'll let Marsha close us out with the last question, but I do just want to give a special homage to your father. As I mentioned before the show, he was a dear pioneer in our community in Philadelphia. Most people who know of Philadelphia and the Garden of Bilal, it was his father who was responsible for that. Also, Claire Muhammad School, the upkeep and the maintenance of that. Also, Mashallah, and so many Islamic programming families. He helped out a lot of families in our community, young families. I mean, I was just getting married about 2 years in, and we had our daughter Hbcus actually at his house there in Willingboro. So we're definitely honored to meet you on that next level to know your father. So I'll let Sister Marsha close us out for her last question.
So I didn't have one prepared, but I always something just pop in my head. So this one will just be, where do we go from here, right? So we've had this conversation about the fact that it's important to emphasize HBCUs to our young people, and we have a responsibility as alumni, and we have a responsibility as parents. So what is the vehicle at this point, right? We come off of this podcast and then we go into our regular life. What do we do? What's the game plan?
So first and foremost, we have to make sure that we're promoting an HBCU education, letting our children know, and anybody who is willing to listen, that an HBCU education is more than just the academics. It is everything. It is culture. It is unity. It is healing. It is everything that the African American community needs in order to grow, from spirituality to academics. That once we support HBCUs, then we're supporting our legacy. So from this point forward, we have to make sure that once we're talking about colleges, we always put HBCUs on the table, making sure when we go to our children's school, when we go to our relative's house and you have kids who are ready to go off to college, that you're promoting HBCUs. Anybody who has an open ear, we need to make sure that we're promoting these schools. And if you graduated or even if you just attended an HBCU, start giving money back, because they desperately need it to keep the doors open.
Excellent, excellent. We thank you so kindly for short notice, jumping to the call, blessing us with your insight, your guidance. Also, you could check out his book. We did put a tinyurl.com/HBCU Pride, or you also could just go to Amazon and put in Dr. Shafeeq Ameen, and all of his books will come up for you to purchase. Any other contact information you want to share, or any events or any things you got coming up you want the community to know?
Well, my second book is on Amazon now, but I really want people to really delve into that deeply. Besides HBCU Pride, a message to a fatherless generation, really goes deep into the psychological damage that happens to our young boys when they don't have an active father in their lives. And I was able to get interviews with Kevin Durant and LeBron James and Shaquille O'Neal and Jay-Z, and all of these men at the top of their fields. They all said, I still miss my father. And I think, if we can kind of go into that, and I have some good stories about, being raised by Muhsin El Amin and how I turned out to be the man I am today. So, if you get a chance to look online at Amazon, it's there under my name. I think people will really appreciate it.
Yes,
yeah, part two. We're going to get part two, man.
Part two, absolutely.
Part two, man.
Okay. So that's the wrap up of the hour. We also want to invite you all to check out our new campaign on tinyurl.com, New Freedom Path, PAATH, as well as our PayPal. That's paypal.me, the Bilalian Trust. We also will be celebrating next month in conjunction with We Buy Black, New Africa August. New Africa August is going to be a month dedicated to us planning our future together collectively. We know we have our historical month that we recall historical places, persons, and events of the African American in February. Well, there's a group of young people in conjunction with other community members and leaders and business people that are going to be promoting August for New Africa August. So check that out at newafricaaugust.com. Any other closing remarks?
Oh no, we just got this. We have, just as the kickoff to the series, the series that we have going on, the healthy thinking series. This is concluding our Friday portion, but please come back tomorrow at 5:00 p.m. Eastern. We have these Cleveland's own, the first Muslim city councilman, Bashir Jones, who is a Morehouse alum, who will be joining us with another brother Dave. They're both artists, poets, and activists in their community. We'll be debuting their video called Freedom. That's tomorrow at 5 p.m. And then later on that day, yes, we're double booking. We're double decker. 9 p.m. Eastern. We have Sister Saida Denise. She is an artist and a vocalist, a songstress. She'll be debuting her song "Dying for Love," and we're gonna dive deep into that. conversation as well as relationships and how that relates to our theme for this week. I mean, for this weekend. But yes.
Excellent, excellent. So until next time, we thank you all for tuning in, liking, sharing, subscribing. Check us out on YouTube at New Freedom Exchange, Instagram New Freedom Exchange, Facebook New Freedom Exchange, and we're working on our website and some other platforms. We also getting ready for our New Freedom Exchange Daily Digital, which is going to launch in August. So look out for that and the Patreon and all that. And we just thank you all for tuning in and giving us the support, because we want to contribute to the psychological landscape on these airwaves and bring our contribution to the forefront. So again, we thank you all. We'll leave you as we began in peace, and we'll share our brother dear Shadi Aki ancestors. Until next time, peace.
Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you again, Doctor. Yes, sir.
Alhamdulillah, it was a pleasure.
Absolutely.
They tryna turn Trenton into Baby Flint. Been signs by depression on the billboards ever since. 100 years ago we was lynched. Now they use germ warfare to kill us. I'm convinced, got the evidence. I look around and it's evident. Then go down to City Hall and see so much negligence. Real art is intelligent. A true artist sends messages that speak to your intelligence. They fought and died so I can do my thing. Not to get drunk and high or join no gang. I will not let none of you die in vain. For my people I bang, bang, bang. My ancestors been through so much pain. I don't let them die in vain. My ancestors been through so much pain. I don't let them die in vain. I rep for you in everything I do. I rep for you in every place I go. I rep for you in everything I do. In every place I go. They say post-traumatic slavery disorder's fake, but I just tell them all to wake up. Everything we went through, what a way down a rape, bro. Isn't our genetic makeup. So I am my ancestors from block to block. Let's build like it's Tetris. We must unite, link up like a necklace. They fought and died and we disrespected. So I come to correct it. The legacy they left I protected. We only think about self and neglected. You're African but yet you rejected. No. My ancestors been through so much pain. I don't let them die in vain. My ancestors been through so much pain. I don't let them die in vain. I rep for you in everything I do. I rep for you in every place I go. I rep for you in everything I do. In every place I go. I do. I go.